Copenhagen is the creative capital. It is the capital of bicycles. So that's why we're now riding through Copenhagen together with Thomas Resch, a board member of the YPT. And as I said to Thomas earlier, I hate abbreviations. It's the Young Professionals in Transplantation, a network of young transplant professionals connecting, developing. Good morning, Thomas.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining me on this ride to beautiful Copenhagen. It's nice and sunny out.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to have a little exercise here at the Congress. Quite enjoying myself here with you on that bike ride. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad. Let's ride along a bit and let's explore. The Young Professionals in Transplantation, or let's now refer to it as the YPT, have been hosting a few sessions and activities here in the Congress.
Yeah.
Let's zoom in on a specific one that took place earlier on crisis management. What was the title of that session?
Yeah, it was quite a bit of a different format, and we were a little anxious about this, how people would react to this session, because it was a little different. So it was not simply showing data. It was, we had the idea, young professionals in transplant, they will encounter critical situations in their everyday lives as they arise. And they will bring him or her to their limits, to their personal limits. So we thought it might be a good idea to have interesting personalities, people invited to talk about crisis management. And these people really knew what they were talking about. We had a former ambassador, a British ambassador to the UN and NATO, who was in charge. He was one of the people who were in charge of solving the Gulf War crisis back in the 90s.
Yeah,
so he
big
was
team.
Sir Stuart Eldon, so he definitely knew what he was talking about. He gave us a very inspiring talk about how to stay cool and master such situations. Now, but we had other people invited. We had a CEO, not a CEO, it was Annelise Ponkier who gave us advice. We had a surgeon, Judges Frakas, and we had a Marine captain from the British Army. And what was quite interesting was that there were a lot of parallels between the Army and the OR, which might sound a little odd and ridiculous at first.
Yeah.
But then he told us about how they are preparing for critical situations such as the battlefield.
Yeah.
And what they are doing in the Army is what they call wargaming.
Yeah.
They go through a battle situation in advance, just in their minds. The whole team sits together and they talk through such a battle.
When you say war game, in this day and age, I would actually already expect they are literally gaming and shooting. But you say this is a talkative session.
Yeah. This is nothing to do with
computer games.
Online computer games.
No, okay.
They sit together as a team and they go through the different steps of a battle, and they think of what can go wrong. And what do we do if in that situation? How can we troubleshoot? And I think this is something that is perfectly translatable to, let's say, a surgical unit. And this is a take-home message for me. We're definitely going to do this back home. Sit together as a surgical team, go through surgical procedures, and then together with, for example, Stefan Schneeberger as our head, talk with him how there's a bleeding in a big vessel, big bleeding. So you do one suture first. If that doesn't help and makes it only worse, what can you do next?
What is plan B? What is plan C?
What is plan C? What is plan... Exactly. So a lot of lessons to be learned. Also,
because if I make it a bit personal for you, you're a young transplantation professional. People might Google this video, find it, and look at you. What is a story? What is a moment you will never forget when you think about a crisis? You're a surgeon. What is a moment that will always stick with you?
Yeah, actually, it was during a liver transplantation when a friend of mine and I we did hepatectomy, and it was actually that situation that on the upper cava there was a big bleeding.
Yeah.
And what we did is do a first suture, and it only made it worse. And we did a second suture, and that only made it worse. And third, and it was already getting quite critical. We had a finger on it.
Was this the first time you encountered something like this?
No. When we were alone, with the young, the young were alone in the OR. And what we did is put the finger on it and call our senior,
Call for help. Yeah.
Stefan, and he said us now change strategies. And that really worked. So, and I think if you do this in advance, and this is what we can learn from these guys from the army, from that army captain, this is something that can really help to avoid critical situations and make you more professional in it. Now, there was another lesson. Something interesting he said. It was he said, when you're in battle, and he was in Afghanistan, he was decorated there, he said when you're in battle and you have to start to think how to reload your gun, you'd probably be dead by then.
Exactly.
And again, this is something which can be compared to, converted to the OR. When it's the first time you have to do something like this, it's probably a good idea that you train for that as best as possible, maybe in experimental models or...
Exactly. So at least you have kind of a muscle memory basis to always go back on.
Exactly what he called it. The muscle has to be all in your muscle memory. As soon as you have to think, having to start to think about how to do it, it's probably a bad idea. As a soldier, as probably as a physician, as a surgeon, as a transplant coordinator, as a nurse, whatever YPT, whatever young professional in transplant.
Yeah, and I can also imagine if you describe the situation with the two young guys. Obviously, you're not young. You're educated. You're certified. You're now responsible for your own surgery. There is a how does it feel if you have to give up, or so to say? Like we cannot handle this anymore. You have to escalate and call a more senior person. That I can imagine that feels like failing, right? So if you've had the talk before and this is a serious scenario and everybody knows, dude, this can happen, call me.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical. There's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Exactly that.
And this was also handled in the talk by the UN ambassador who solved this crisis in the Gulf War, asked other people communicate, and this is what he said is just key to solving such critical situations.
Yeah.
It's not staying on your own, keeping it for you. Communication at best possible level.
Yeah, and I think it's important to take away as lesson also that this, so you can say communicate, but it's good, I think, to understand that your primary emotion is to fix it yourself, right?
Exactly.
So that is not the most natural thing to do.
Exactly. Yeah. But know your limits is also, I think, something which is quite important. And this is also something Annalisa pointed out as the perspective from the CEO. As a CEO, also she gave us advice how to stand up when you have a failure, a critical situation. You didn't master as well as or as good as you wanted to. You have to be prepared for the next situation coming up.
Yeah, and her tip was, own up to it. So take responsibility and be open about the fact that there's things to be improved. Or?
Well, he and the UN ambassador both used the word "build a little Chinese wall." You have to, after such a hard day, with a lot of crisis you have to start relaxing at some point. And there's this little wall, and beyond that, there's time for family, time for private life. Okay. Relax, and then recover, and you will be able to do that. But it's the critical thing is to build that little wall.
Exactly.
So that was their lesson.
Because one of the things that fascinates me, and I guess might be interesting if you're an even younger professional in transplantation and getting into the field. Obviously, I'm not a transplantation professional myself, so what I realize is that you literally work with the life of someone else in your hands. And everybody makes mistakes when they work. I make mistakes when I'm on camera here, but then that doesn't matter that much. How do you deal with the stress and pressure? Is that being touched on? Because you're going to make mistakes. And in your job, that might mean that someone loses their life. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think what is absolutely key is that you're not thinking about if I'm doing this wrong, this person is going to die.
Exactly, that cannot be on your mind.
Exactly, and I think this is comparable to what the soldier said. It's step by step, and training as much as possible in the pre-field and then do that professionally, stepwise. And not to think about it as probably as a whole, and not to.
Beautiful. Beautiful, and I think it's nice and important to see that the YPT brings these kind of topics also into this Congress. Yesterday we had another session about stress management for transplantation professionals that was very highly attended, and a lot of people were watching that and talking about it. And it's funny because this is a super scientific medical Congress, right? It should be all about the science. But in the meantime, we're all humans, we're professionals, and I guess these kind of topics need to be addressed as well. So thank you very much for sharing. Now, if somebody watches this and they wonder, how can I become a part of the young professionals in transplantation? Where can they go?
Yeah, YPT is all about connecting young professionals in transplant, and this is exactly the key point. Of course, we will be present at various conferences, but in the time between conferences, it's absolutely crucial that we can engage the YPTs out there. So we've got the YPT map, a map all of it where Europe is shown and the specific centers, and YPTs can sign up for this map. So if if I want to do a little fellowship, maybe in Oxford, learn something about kidney transplantation, who shall I call? So I go on the map, I find maybe Sijan Akhtar popping up, and I can ask him from a young professional to a young professional, is it worthwhile coming to your place?
Exactly.
Will I really learn a lot there? Or shall I maybe go somewhere else? And who can I ask?
Literally the networking taking place.
Exactly. So from we would like to encourage the communication between young professionals. And I think this is the first step. This is now being launched. There will be a newsletter very soon, and we hope as many YPTs as possible will sign up for this. So this whole network is going to become huge.
Nice. Well, Thomas, careful with riding without no hands here in the city of Copenhagen. But
thank you.
Thank you for riding along with me. Thank you for watching this, and I hope to see you at some future YPT events.